welcome back. If you're new, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my birth story. My daughter is actually currently 7 months old, so it was like a little while ago, and you know, like when you're in pain and everything, you kind of forget what's happening, so I'm going to tell it to the best of my abilities. So it started out September 7th actually of 2019. I woke up around 6 a.m. with like really liquidy discharge. It wasn't a lot, and being pregnant, it's kind of TMI, but you like have a lot of different discharges and everything. But this one was like particularly different just because of how liquidy I guess it was. And so like I woke up my mom because I was staying with her at that time. My husband was actually deployed, and so I was staying with her. That way we didn't have to like pay rent at like a different apartment or something when it'd just be me living there. And I kind of needed support because, you know, I was 19, like first time mom kind of thing. So anyway, I went to wake her up and she's like, oh, you know, it's probably just discharge, you're fine. So I just kind of like went on with the day doing my usual stuff, and my sister actually just had a baby 4 months before I did. So I was like, hey, you know, I had this happen, what do you think it is? And she goes, oh, it's probably just your discharge and nothing to worry about. But I was a little bit worried just because I felt like my water had like ruptured a little bit, but it was my first baby, so, you know, I thought, probably not, I'll just listen to them. But throughout the day, it just kept happening, a little bit here, a little bit there. But I just kept saying, you know, it's still happening, you know, should I go get checked? And they're like, oh no, you're just being paranoid, it's just it's just discharge, you're fine. And I believed them after a little bit, and so I didn't tell my husband or anything. At that time, he was actually on his way back from deployment to like come down for the birth, because on September 13th, I do believe it was, I was supposed to get induced just so he could be here. So he was already supposed to like be there fairly quickly. He was on his way. I think he was supposed to get there like very early morning, like around like 3 a.m. or something like that. September 9th. So I just needed to keep her in a little bit longer. But so I just went throughout the day, you know, doing my usual stuff and playing with my sister's baby and just hanging out with family. But so I just went throughout the day, you know, doing my usual stuff and playing with my sister's baby and just hanging out with family. And then around 6 p.m. rolled around, and my mom and I thought, well, you know, we're gonna go food shopping because my husband's gonna be there soon, and my husband's parents actually came down from Missouri to be there for like the birth and everything too. So they were going to be there soon, and we're just going to have like a really big house full. So my mom and I went to go grocery shopping, and the closest like actual good grocery store was an hour away from the house. And I just want to put out there, my doctor's office was also an hour away, but in the opposite direction. So we were just shopping around, getting the food we needed. You know, I'm cramping here and there, but I had been throughout like the day, and I didn't think it was contractions. I just, you know, thought it was cramping because it was my first baby. I've never had contractions before. So we're just shopping, and I'm kind of just ignoring them, and they're getting a little bit stronger, but I didn't think nothing of it. And then we go to put the food in the car. But we went to go put the food in the car, and all of a sudden I had like a bigger gush. And I thought, did I just like pee myself a little bit? Because my bladder had been full, and so that's why I thought my cramping was getting bad. Like, not bad, but my cramping was getting worse. So I figured, you know, I need to go pee. I'm getting groceries in the car, and I felt a little gush. So at first I thought, you know, I peed myself a little bit, because that happens during pregnancy sometimes. And I noticed too, I hadn't really felt Raelynn move that much in the last 3 or 4 hours, and she was usually a very active baby. So we just continued to load, and then I had like a really big gush to where it got my pants a little bit wet, and I thought, I don't think that's pee. So I told my mom, and she's like, well, do you want to run down to the Taco Bell, because it was literally right next to the grocery store, and use our bathroom to, you know, like check yourself out. So I ended up going inside of the Taco Bell bathroom, and I pulled down my pants, and sure enough, it wasn't pee. It was clear fluid, no smell. It wasn't even enough to be pee. It was a lot, but not like a really big amount like you see in movies when someone's water breaks. So I get back to the car and I tell my mom, hey, I think it was my water. I'm really scared, you know, my husband still isn't here and I don't know what to do. So she's like, okay, well, let's go home, get the groceries put away, and then we'll head to the hospital. And she seemed calm at that time, but as soon as I got my seatbelt buckled, she was starting to go frantic. Because even though she's had like 4 kids, she knows that when your water breaks, you're not going to have the baby in like an hour or whatnot. At least most of the time you're not going to. It's usually a while. But she was still just worried about getting me to the hospital. So on our way home, I called my husband and I was just bawling and sobbing and telling him I'm so sorry that, you know, my water broke. Even though it wasn't my fault, I felt really, really bad. But he reassured me that everything's okay and he was just about to get on his plane to, I think it was his first plane or his second plane he had to go on to get home. So I was really hoping she would like stay in until then, even though I knew she wouldn't, because it was over 24 hours and typically when your water breaks, they don't want you going over 24 hours. But my mom and I headed home to put the groceries away and for me to grab my hospital bag and anything else that I wanted. After it seemed like a forever car ride, even though it was just an hour, we finally got home. My sister kind of helped my mom unload the groceries and stuff for the most part. While I grabbed like my hospital bag, my toothbrush, everything that I needed to grab right that second. And my mom and I started to head to the hospital while my sister finished up the stuff at the house for us. On our way to the hospital, we picked up my mom's friend. She like didn't live too far from us and it was on our way. Plus I really wanted her to be there when I had Raelynn because she's like a second mom to me. She's always been a big part of our lives and helped us out whenever my mom needed it. But we got to the hospital and, you know, they did the whole swabbing thing to test to see if my water actually broke or not. So we're waiting for the results to get back and we're just kind of cracking jokes. I'm kind of keeping my husband updated as best as possible. And, you know, just like, I was really excited, but at that same time, I was really scared just because my husband wasn't there. Yeah, I had my mom and my, like, second mom, but I just really wanted my husband. This is my first baby, and it's just, I didn't want to do it without him. But the test results came back, and it came back positive, so my water did break. And they said that it must have broke around 6 a.m. when I got up, and it was just like a pinpoint hole, a little teeny tiny one that just kind of leaked here and there. And then while I was putting groceries in the car, it must have actually full on ruptured. So at least I knew, like, I didn't pee myself. I didn't think I did, but there's always that possibility. So I was relieved about that, but at the same time, I almost would have rathered that happen just so my husband could be there. But at that time, I'm just trying to stay optimistic. I was really excited to finally put a little face on the name and the baby I've been feeling in my stomach for 9 months. By that time, it was probably around 2 a.m. I think. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 2 a.m. September 8th. So my water at that time had been broke for 20 hours. And like I said, they usually don't let you go over 24 hours, and they were really stressing to me like in the beginning about that, which I'm not sure why, because later on you'll see they let me go well over 24 hours. But they started me off with a pill. I think it was called Cervidil. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was Cervidil. The one they gave me, I actually had to swallow, and it's just supposed to soften your cervix so it can dilate and to thin it out the rest of the way. And after they gave me that, I walked around for a while, and like I said, it was really early in the morning and I was tired and I should have slept. But at that point, I was so excited to meet her and I was so nervous and scared at the same time that I really couldn't sleep. Looking back now, I really wish I would have made myself, because I feel like I would have done much better throughout my labor being rested. Because towards the end, you'll notice, like when I tell you that I was completely exhausted. I wanted to do a natural labor, so I made sure to tell them that I didn't want a spinal tap, because that's the kind of pain medication they did there. But after giving me about 2 or 3 more Cervidil, they checked me, and they're very, very careful about like when they check you and how often they do, because when your water breaks, if they check you, they can end up putting bacteria in you that can cause infection to you or your baby. So they check you very, very little. Even if you want to be checked, like 99% of the time they'll tell you, no, we're not checking you yet, just because of that risk. But I started to finally dilate and I got to a 2. I'm not exactly sure what time it was I got to a 2. I know it was like probably early morning. But around 8 o'clock in the morning, September 8th rolled around, and I was starting to have pretty good contractions, to the point to where they were kicking my butt a little bit. But I just wanted to be done. I told them, just give me Pitocin and help speed it up. And because I feel like if they gave me Pitocin a lot sooner than they end up doing it, I would have done a lot better, just because it let me go so long. But my husband still wasn't there. He was still trying his best to get to us, but like I said, he had to take more than one plane to get home. I kept him updated as best as I could. I was in a lot of pain, so when I couldn't update him, I tried to have my mom do it, but at the same time, she was trying to comfort me, and my second mom was also doing the same thing, and she ended up leaving for a little bit, but her and her husband made sure to come back literally as I was pushing. But I think around 1 to 2 p.m., somewhere in there on September 8th, they checked me and I was still at a 2, maybe a 2.5, if that. So they finally decided, hey, we'll give you Pitocin to kind of help speed things up. So they did give me some Pitocin, and I think they gave me about 3 doses. But honestly, when they give you Pitocin and they tell you you're going to have contractions really hard, really fast, non-stop, believe them, because it fucking sucks, if I'm being honest. I would have much rather them do it sooner, because I'd rather have really hard, fast contractions that help me dilate quicker than dealing with the contractions I was having consistently that were really painful, just not quite as painful as those, but I was having them for, hours and hours and hours. Because by that time, it had been well over 24 hours that my water had broken. So about that time, I was really exhausted because I hadn't slept in well over 24 hours. And I just, wanted to sleep, but every time I tried to close my eyes, I'd have another contraction. So I tried, going inside of the bathtubs that they have, because they have, jets and everything in there. And it was really nice, but I got to the point to where I kept almost falling asleep in there, and that isn't good, because, if you fall asleep in the tub, you can, slip or, get your head under the water. So my mom and sister, because my sister came for a little bit, sat in there with me, kept an eye on me. And then it got to the point to where I didn't want to sit in the bathtub because the tub was so hard and I was having a lot of tailbone and hip pain, during my contractions. So I got back inside of the bed. Nothing seemed to help the pain, no matter standing or someone rubbing my back or the bathtub anymore. Just anything, nothing was helping. And I really just needed to close my eyes because how exhausted I was. So I did opt into getting a pain medication put in my IV. I forget what it was. They said it didn't affect the baby and it didn't take away my pain. It just kind of put the edge off a tiny littlest bit to where between my contractions, the minute or two I had, I could close my eyes and relax. Now I didn't sleep, but like I said, I was able to relax and kind of get my thoughts together and everything and not just be constantly in pain. But at that point, I was very emotional, and I just wanted my husband to be there with me. I know to this day it wasn't my fault, but I still feel really bad that he wasn't able to be there. Our little joke is just that Raelynn was so excited to see him that she wanted to already be out by the time he got there so she could have more time with him. But I guess I was not mean to people when I was in pain, but I guess when someone tried to talk to me, I would just shush them. And I remember that just because it helped me a lot to just concentrate on the contraction and getting through it when there was no noise. As soon as there was noise, I felt like the contraction was 10 times worse than it was, and I'm not exactly sure why that was. But then after that, I started pressing my call button, telling the nurses, I feel like I gotta push. And they're like, oh, last time we checked you and you said that you're only 6 centimeters. It's only been an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We're not gonna check you. And I said, no, I'm serious. I really, really need to push. And they said, no, we can't check you and you're fine. So they just kind of walked out, and I pressed my call light again. Same thing happened. They just walked out. And I want to say about 10 minutes or so, probably more, about 10 to 20 minutes of me literally yelling at myself, telling myself not to push, just because if you're not ready to push, you can hurt your baby or rupture your uterus and anything else like that. And they were telling me that I wasn't ready to push, so I was scared about doing something like that, even though my body was telling me to push. So I hit my call light a 3rd or 4th time. I forget exactly how many times. But she came in and I finally told her, look, I have to push. I don't care what you say. You need to check me. I can't not push anymore. And everyone was just thinking, I'm in pain. I don't really need to push and whatnot. So she told me, look, I can't check you. Your water broke. I don't want to put bacteria in there and cause you or your baby an infection. And I said, well, I really have to. And so finally, after her not wanting to check me, I pulled my blankets back I had over me and opened up my legs. And sure enough, she goes, oh, your baby's crowning. And I'm like, nah, really? I just been saying I had to push for the last 20 minutes or so. So after she told someone, 2 or 3 more nurses came in. And they're like, just hold off pushing as best as you can. I understand it's hard, especially because, you're having a natural labor, so I'm not numb or anything. I feel when I need to push. And they're like, we have to wait for the doctor to get here, but the best of my abilities, I tried not to, but I couldn't help it, and I pushed. And Raelynn's head came part of the way out, but the cord was wrapped around her neck so tightly that she was blue. So they're like, wait, you have to stop pushing. And when someone tells you to not push and you're having contractions and your baby's already coming out, it is so hard to it's so hard to listen to them. But I did my best abilities, and luckily I didn't push, and she was able to get the cord up from around her neck and her head and everything really fast and efficiently. And then the next contraction came around and she said, you know what, she's already partially out, just push. So I pushed and Raelynn came out. I was scared for a second just because she looked so purplish and blue and she wasn't breathing, and she probably didn't cry for about 10 or 15 seconds, but it seemed like a lifetime. I was really scared. I kept asking if she was okay, and the nurses kept reassuring me that she was fine. They finally got her to cry, and it was, let me tell you, it's the most amazing noise you'll hear in your life. Hearing that all the pain you just been through is worth it. About that time, my doctor actually came into the room, so they put Raelynn on my lower abdomen. They usually put the baby on your mid to upper chest, but for some reason her cord was so short that it couldn't reach it. Just her being on my lower abdomen was tugging on it. So they actually let my mom cut the cord because my husband still wasn't there. He wasn't able to make it. And after they cut my cord, they delivered the rest of my placenta. After all that happened, they kind of get you cleaned up a little bit, and I was doing skin to skin with Raelynn. I actually was breastfeeding her, but I couldn't get her to latch right because I actually do have inverted nipples, so I ended up having to use a nipple shield. But Raelynn was born at 5:14 p.m. September 8th. She weighed 6 pounds and 9 ounces and was 20 inches long. Her and I just kind of cuddled, relaxed, watched some TV. Everybody left except for my mom, and she fell asleep on the chair because it got really, really late. My stepfather actually was there too through it all, but he went to go pick up my husband from the airport, which was about an hour and a half away. And then finally at 2 a.m. my husband got there, and let me tell you, it was the most surreal moment in my life. I hadn't seen him in around 2 months, which isn't a long time, I know, compared to what some people have to be without their husbands, but it seemed like forever to me, especially going through all of that. And so just being able to be in his arms again and see him hold our baby girl for the first time, it was amazing. So him and I and Raelynn had to stay in the hospital for 3 or 4 days. I forget exactly how many. Instead of 2, just because my water had been broke for so long, they wanted to make sure that Raelynn didn't get any infections and that I didn't get any. Luckily, she breastfed like a little champ, and everything went smoothly, so we got to end up going back to my mom's house and spend some time together. And we got to spend time with his parents, which we hadn't seen in a while, and of course my mom and my stepdad, because I was living there at the time. And more importantly, we got to spend time together because he was only be able to be with me and Raelynn for 3 weeks until he had to go back to his deployment. I just want to put out there that he is currently back. Let's see here. We moved in our new apartment 2.5 months ago, so he's been back for a little bit, and it is so nice to be a family again. But that's my birth video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I told as much as I could. That's about as much as I remember. I think I did pretty good, but if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, and if you could subscribe down below. If you want, leave a comment, and if you ring the little bell, you can get notifications every time I post. Thank you for watching. Bye.